first, can you hear me? Can you hear me okay? Dr. Burson's formula saying that A times B is always constant. And how much is the constant? Well, you can refer to this calculator, and as I said, Dr. Huang will let you know how to download and use it. And this is the constant over here. Now, how can we apply this theory into practice? Let's take a look at a case. You can see that this is class 2 division 1 case, severely protruded upper. So we need some intrusion and retraction at the same time. It's clear that it is protruded here. So this is my plan. This is the position before the treatment. This is after the treatment. I wanted to retract the incisors parallel with the occlusal plane and intrude it a little bit. It's I want to retract the center resistance 3 millimeter distally and 3 millimeter occlusally. The total amount of displacement will be 4 millimeter, and it has been rotated like 20 degrees. Okay? So where should I apply the force? Then we can calculate the center of rotation between 2 points, and there is a perpendicular bisector meets somewhere here. So this is a point where we are going to rotate. Now we calculate the center of rotation so that where should the B is determined, like 10. Then how much is A? A times B is constant. So it says that A is about 3.5 millimeter away from the center of resistance. So this is the line where we apply the force. As you can see here, bracket is here. So we apply the force at the bracket. We cannot obtain this objective. So we should not apply the force at the bracket. No matter you turn the bracket in the same direction, it says force should be around 45 degrees, upward, backward. But if you apply the force at the bracket, what happens is the interior will flare out no more because force is acting in front of the center of resistance. So in this case, force should be applied, moved here, but there's no bracket. Then how would you do it? So force should be moved here, and it can freely move along this line of action, right? So what you can do is, as you've seen before, here's a stabilizing arch wire connecting from the incisors and bypass the cuspid. And here is the cuspid over here, you can see in the x-ray. And suppose a bracket is somewhere here, you can apply the force with intrusion spring of applying a 20 gram and using an elastic from the posterior tooth and applying 20 gram backwards. Okay? So you can sum these two teeth, sum of these horizontal and vertical tube. We've learned it in middle school, and Pythagorean theorem will tell you the resultant of the force. So here's a resultant of 30 gram along the line of action, something like this. So this is the force system you have to apply to establish this treatment goal. So let's take a look what happens in a real patient here. See, this is an adult patient. She's complaining about protruding upper lips. So as you can see in the x-ray, upper incisors are leaning forward, quite labially flared, right? So the model shows that uppers are flared, and here is a class 2 molar relationship. So my plan is to retract the uni-arch. Only upper arch premolar is extracted. Here is the patient to begin with. And this is a plan. This is my plan, treatment objective. I want to intrude the teeth and retract the incisors, rotating somewhere around here so that apex goes up and the incisor tip goes back. This is my plan. And the next question is, to get that plan, where should I put the force? Right? So once again, calculator shows that if this is a plan, I can calculate where the center of rotation is, and once center of rotation is determined, that means B is determined. B is like 13.5 millimeter, then A could be 2.7 millimeter away from the center of resistance, so that force should be applied somewhere like this. Okay? This is our plan, and this is where we have to apply the force. So back to the patient, you can see that the anterior segment is stabilized with stainless steel actuator, and there's two hooks, one from anterior segment and the other from the posterior segment, and two hooks are connected with O-ring or ligature tie, whatever you use. And if I take an X-ray, you can see that two hooks are connected with an elastic module, and you can see the line of action like this. So here's the incisor, and line of action is behind the center of resistance somewhere here, so that this is the line of action of the force that I applied to the patient to obtain our treatment objective. So here's the treatment progress. Here's the progress of the patient, and here's the patient after the treatment. And this is before, and this is after. And let's compare if the tooth has moved as we planned. So let's take a superimposition. This is before and after. And here is the superimposition showing before and after. And let's compare this with our plan. Okay. So this is our plan, this was our plan, and this is what happened really in the patient. And if we take a superimposition between two, you can see that there's a quite little difference between two. So it says Mercer's formula can be proved clinically too. So this exactly coincides with our plan. Next step is about side effects. As we said, in Newton's first law said, simple force cannot exist. There should be always equal and opposite force, right? So is this reciprocal force good or bad? We have to think about it. Suppose here we have a drug. Let's suppose this is aspirin. Okay? So what is the effect of aspirin? We take aspirin when we have a headache or a toothache, right? Or if you have a fever, we take aspirin. So anti-inflammatory effect and anti-pyretic effect is the main effect of aspirin, right? What is the side effect of aspirin? Aspirin is very strong acid, so it may hurt your stomach, right? And aspirin might delay the coagulation time. So when you extract the teeth, you don't subscribe aspirin as a painkiller. Why is that? That's because it increases the bleeding tendency after extraction. So increasing bleeding tendency is a side effect of aspirin, right? So my next question is side effect good or is side effect bad? Well, for us, as an oral surgeon or a dentist, as it increases the coagulation time, this is not good side effect, right? So it is called adverse side effects, okay? But for elder people, someone like me, or your parents, or if you get older, they are recommended to take a little bit of aspirin every day to prevent CVA, cerebral vascular disease. It decreases the heart attack, it decreases the cerebral stroke. Why is that? It prevents blood coagulation, right? So in that case, increasing bleeding time, is it good or bad? That's good, right? So side effects is not always bad. When we say some kind of a side effect, we have very negative image of it. Side effects is very bad, but it's not always bad. Side effects can be beneficial to the patient, like increasing coagulation time in acetone. So we have to. Same is true in orthodontic appliance. All orthodontic appliance have side effect. Why does it have side effect? It's because of Newton's first law. We cannot avoid from the law of nature. So if you want to retract the cuspid backward, something must be moved forward, right? That's a side effect. The next question is, as I asked, is it good or bad? It depends on situations, and we'll take a look one by one. Here we have many side effects frequently observed during our daily practice. When we close the space, there's an anchorage loss. When they're going to retract the anterior, as it goes back, it's going to move down. Inside the lid is going to move down, so bite is going to be deepened, especially in class 2 division 1, right? So in this case, we need an intrusion. And if the elastic is placed on between cuspid and molar, in the user perspective, force is acting at the buccal side, so the cuspid is not only going back, it's going to rotate it distal in, and molar will not only move forward, it's going to be mesial in rotated as side effects, right? Canine and molar might rotate because force is acting at the tubes. And if you are using undersized wire or round wire during retraction, incisor might tip too much lingually, right? So that could be a side effects too. And if you are doing leveling, in other words, leveling, as you've seen this morning, if you're lucky, you will have a perfect leveling after inserting the wire. But if you're unfortunate and unlucky, you may have an occlusal plane canting after the leveling, right? So it depends on your luck, not on your knowledge, right? And also, if you're using intermaxillary elastic, occlusal plane might change. In class 2 elastic, if you use it, occlusal plane might rotate it, so it will stick in the occlusal plane, right? So, let's suppose we are applying both force on the cuspid and molar to retract the cuspid. Let's suppose we want to retract the cuspid backwards. That's what we want. But, as I said, something must move forward. That is the molar in this case, and this is called side effect. The next question is this movement bad? Sometimes it's bad. Let's suppose we have a bimaxillary protrusion case, and patient wants her lips to be restricted. Then in that case, molar moving forward is not good. So that in that case, that's adverse side effects. But let's suppose we have class 3. If there's a class 3, moving upper molar forward or moving lower back, that would be beneficial. So it is not always bad, and it depends on situation. That side effects can be good. Right? So I would like to talk about how to avoid side effects in orthodontics. I mean, in this case, that's good, or whether it is good or bad, we need to avoid from adverse effect. Or if we cannot escape from the side effect, maybe we can utilize the side effects too, right? So those all kind of side effects can be divided into 2 subcategories. Can be subcategorized into 2 groups. One side effects is appear in the reactive unit, something like this. And the other group of side effect is produced at the active unit, something like these. And we will take a look at one by one. Let's take a look at the side effects at the reciprocal unit. Let's start with this. Here we have anterior spacing. Okay, this is called diastema, right? In this case, there will be 2 doctors who can treat this patient in different way. One would do like this. So he put the elastic in between only centrals, and this is. It moves left one to the right side and moves the right one to the left side. And my question is, which one is main effect and which one is side effect? Well, you cannot distinguish, right? Both main effect and side effects both are good, and those are equal and opposite, right? So I would depict it in the angel like this. Both are good. Good angel, right? And same case, but some of doctor might treat it in different way. So he treated the patient in 2 stages. So first stage is he put the wire, he put the elastic from left cuspid to right lateral here to close the space first, to move the left one first. So he moved this one, so the centrals are moved to the midline over here. So it is moving central is good, but he unnecessarily moved the lateral to the left side. So this is not good. It's an evil, right? And as left one moved to the correct position, now he moved the elastic from right central to left lateral like this to close the remaining space. So he successfully closed the space using an angel force, but he made evil force inadvertently. So he made this kind of a side effect inadvertently, and this is called adverse side effect. And he made another malocclusion during diastemic closure. So the second doctor does not know how to manage the side effect. The first doctor cleverly managed the side effect, and you convert the side effect into very beneficial. So you better find out. You cannot escape from the side effects. Side effects produce every time. And what I want you to know is you have to use the side effects beneficially as much as possible. This is a lingual case. I don't do lingual nowadays, but when I was young, I did a lot. And as we know, take a look at this case. It's a final stage. You can see that the lateral has been a little bit rotated. I want a minor correction. As you can see here, inner bracket distance is larger than here. It is short, this is long. That means lateral is rotating a little bit, right? So in this case, what would you do to correct the rotation of the lateral? Most of you might tighten the ligature. Right? Maybe you think that the ligature is not tight enough so that you cannot do the rotation control. So you replace a rubber band to metal ligature and ligate it very tightly to rotate it. But is this effective? No, not effective way for rotation control. Why is that? Because the width of the lingual bracket is very narrow, right? If the distance between two forces is very narrow, very high force is required to rotate it. Suppose when you're driving a car, steering wheel is like this size, right? But if you're driving a bus or a truck, it's a very heavy vehicle, and it's very hard to turn. So the driver uses very high, very, very large steering wheel, right? Why does it use larger one than smaller one? Because the larger one gives you easy to turn. Because I could say that inner bracket distance is large, so that it is easy to turn the brackets. But if the inner bracket distance, the bracket width is small, even if you tightly ligate it, it is very difficult to rotate the laterals by tight ligature. That's why. So instead of applying tight ligature, what I did was just put the elastic from lateral to lateral. This elastic is engaged. This is nothing to do with the ligature, but the force is applied here. Why is that? Why does it correct like this? That's because central rotation lies in somewhere here in a closer perspective, and force is acted away from the center of resistance lingually, so that not only it gives the force, it cannot move at all because it is blocked by here. So here it applies a distal force, and here is a mesial force, so there's an equal and opposite force acting on the lateral, so you can do rotation control easily using equal and opposite forces. Okay? Once we know the principle, we can use the equal and opposite force to rotate. The technique is not important. I want you to know the principle so that you can use whichever technique you are using, choose the most efficient way to accomplish the rotation control. Here's another case. This may be a congenitally missed case. Maybe HNghi was early missing or something. We can see that the first molar has been tipped into extraction site and it has been rotating like this. And if I put the brackets, bracket goes like this, and inner bracket distance is so short that lateral wire is very difficult to be inserted, right? So instead of putting a wire, I just cut the wire here and put the lingual button in the lingual side like this. And what I did was just pull it together. So there is an equal and opposite force. So what it happens is after a few months, you can see that the first phi and first molar has been rotated in the opposite direction without wire. Only a single force acting on it will do the job. So once it is rotated, now you can put the full arch wire. My message today is avoid using leveling arch wire is not for leveling, okay? Leveling arch wire should be put after the level, only for minor corrections. If you see a very major discrepancy, never put the wire for leveling. If you put the leveling arch wire inadvertently, you will see an crucial plane canting, or you will see an open bind on the lateral, on the lateral, if you have a highly positioned cusp or something. I'll show you a case. Now let's take another case. You can see that the second bicuspid is blocked out parallelly, and also first bi and first molar is rotated into this space. So what I did was to put the open coil spring over here, and you can see that the open coil spring not only opened up the space, the force is acting away from the center of resistance, buckling. From a occlusal perspective, central resistance is somewhere here and there. As I said, it's in the middle of the root. From occlusal perspective, it's below the central pit. So the force is acting away from the center of resistance, so that it goes like this. That means not only it open up the space, the moment is acting in correct direction. So in this case, all the force and the moments are working in correct way. So equal and opposite force is very desirable in this case. Let's take a look at another case over here. You can see that this molar and second molar is severely rotated, right? So what you can do is, instead of a bracket, I just put the lingual button. Why did I put the button instead of the bracket? Maybe that's because lingual button is cheaper than the bracket, but that's not true. That's not my reason. We don't need a bracket. Bracket is for applying force at the moment at the same time, because wires engage with a random angle. But if you're using a button is kind of a hinge support, as I explained it this morning, so that it does not produce any moment. If you want to produce the moment, even if you want to produce the moment, the lingual button cannot produce any moment. So that's why I use the button instead of a bracket. If you're using a bracket and put the wire inside it, maybe unwanted moment can be produced. So instead of to avoid the unwanted moments, in this case, more primitive appliance like lingual button is much better than modern edgewise bracket. So primitive may be better than modern. I'll say classic rather than primitive. Okay, classic would be better than modern. So I put the lingual button over here and there, and you can see progress that it has been rotated successfully. Here's before the rotation, and here's the after the rotation. So main effect and side effects, both are working good in this case. I explained about the open coil spring, and we should be a little bit careful about the open coil spring. What I want to say is about the phenomenon called buckling. What is buckling? Here you have a spring, okay? Whatever spring it may be, it's okay. It's like a spring in our ballpoint pen, or spring in a vehicle, or spring that we use in the clinic, open coil spring can be, or very large spring in your bed, whatever spring it is. If you pull it apart, it can elongate, right? Think of an eye-type spring, no problem. And suppose it's a tension, it's called tension, okay? You pull it apart, it's called tension. But what if you compress it? Compress it. Open coil should be used as compressed state, right? So you press it on each side. So you compress it, and the spring will be compressed like this. Okay? It's a mechanism of open coil spring. But what if the lumen is very small and the spring is very long? And you want to compress it. Theoretically, it compresses. But practically, in real life, it does not compress. It goes like this. Right? This phenomenon is called buckling. If buckling occurs, it ends up with disaster in construction building. So when we make a pillar in a building, you have to make it very thin. If it is narrow, it can undergo buckling and building will collapse. So this buckling phenomenon is very important when you're building a big structure. The same is true in open coil spring too, in orthodontics. So if open coil spring is very long, and there is a very flexible wire inside it, you cannot avoid from buckling. It always buckles. It pops out. So have you ever experienced it? You will experience it very much. So if the wire is very light, something like 14,000 light leveling arch wire, and you put the open coil spring, and all of a sudden it pops out. That's called buckling. So to prevent this, the wire should be rigid enough if you have a long distance of open coil spring. How long? Well, it depends on situation. So I cannot tell exactly how long, but you can do it by trial and error. If it buckles out, that means wire is too flexible. You have to replace wire with more. This is so to avoid buckling, you can see that wire is quite rigid. If the flexible wire was inside the lumen, you cannot avoid buckling with the open coil spring. So when you use the open coil spring, the wire inside the lumen should be strong enough to handle or manage buckling phenomenon. So as you see in this case, not only it opens up the force, by the force it not only opens up the space, once again, the force is applied at the buccal side of the center of resistance, so the molar will not only go back, it's going to rotate clockwise, and the first file not only goes this way, and it can lead to rotate it counterclockwise. So both main effect and side effects are working in a desirable direction. Okay? It is, you can see that very rigid wire is inside to prevent buckling. Now, once you correct the middle discrepancy, now you can change to flexible arch wire for leveling. You see? So once again, leveling arch wire was not put for leveling. Leveling arch wire should be put after leveling. Okay? Please bear in mind. Now, let's go back to the intrusion spring that we analyzed this morning. What was the main effect and side effects of the intrusion arch that we learned this morning? We see there's an intrusive force, right? And we saw that there's an extrusive force, that there's a tip-back moment. That's inevitable. This is what happens in intrusion spring. No matter how you make, no matter who make, no matter material that you use, this always, the force system is something like this. Only the difference is the magnitude. The direction is all the same, okay? So, let's suppose we want intrusion only. I don't want nothing, only intrusion. Then this is a main effect, and I don't want extrusion. I don't want tip back. In that case, the side effects would be adverse side effect, right? Not good. But is it always not good? It's not necessarily not good all the way. Take a look at this patient. This patient is a growing patient, okay? And he is showing deep overbite. and anterior teeth is leaning to the lingual side. So what he needs is intrusion of the incisor, and anterior teeth should be flared a little bit, okay? And as he is showing class 2, molar needs to go back a little bit, okay? And also, extruding the molar for the growing patient might help you for correcting deep overbite. So, teeth back, will move the molars back. You see the spacing over here? So molar is moving back, so it corrects class 2. It is not shown in this case, but the bite has been shallow because it was 100% overbite and it has been intruding like this. Maybe the effect of this is combined effect from intrusion and also extrusion of the molar at the same time. So in growing patient, all of the side effects was beneficial. So case selection is very important. Many lecturers says that case selection is very important, right? But they do not tell how to select the case. So this morning I'm letting you know how to select the case. So if these side effects are beneficial, you select the case correct. So if the patients need interruption and tipping back, that's a good case selection, okay? If the patient is already class 1 and you don't want to move anything on the posterior segment, this is not good. So the case was not properly selected. Now, we frequently find manually rotated molar here. Molar is rotated like that. And how would you treat that? We know to rotate the molar, as we turning the steering wheel, one force at the right side upward and one force downward is a couple. So we know that moving it to turn the wheel, we apply 2 forces, upward force on the right and downward force on the left, so that we can turn it, right? So we all know that. So what he did was I want to rotate it in counterclockwise direction. So I want to put it in upward force here, pin it from here. So what he did was putting 2 elastics from the lingual into the labia like this to rotate the molar. So if you take a look at the molar will rotate desirably, right? It goes up on the right side, goes down on the left side, so it's going to rotate like this. This is what you want. But in a real life, there's a side effect. What happens is something like this. If you apply the elastic like this, not only this one rotates, but you can see that the adjacent teeth rotates too. And as you can see, as we know, first molar has 3 roots like this, right? And it is quite resistant to rotation. But in this case, premolar is single-rooted, and it is very vulnerable for rotation. So rather than this one rotates, this is very easy to be rotated, right? So you have to bear in mind, that there is always side effect, and you have to think about the side effect. You have to put more emphasis thinking about the side effect than main effect. So let's take a look at this case here, similar case. I quoted from the journal. You see, this one should be rotated. And he put the elastic like this. Is it good or bad? Well, I don't know yet, but let's take a look what happened. You can see that he emphasized the rotation of the premolar successfully. However, take a look at what happens for the side effects. The force here is acting at the lingual side of the cuspid, so that you carefully look at what cuspid is happening. It has been rotated clockwise, right? So in this case, it was good. I don't know he have thought about the side effect or not, but actually it did good, as I see. Okay, and take a look at the molar. The molar has been rotated clockwise a little bit, right? What I'm going to say is that those are inevitable. No matter who does, very big name like Prophet or Cockett, no matter who did, they cannot avoid from the side effect. Okay? Whether you did or big name did, that's the same. So you have to, and not only, so my message here is, it's easy to analyze what happens here, but many people neglect the side effects. So what I want to tell you this morning is that put more emphasis on thinking on side effects, not on the main effect. Analysis of main effect, everyone can do, but not everyone put emphasis on side effects. Okay? Then in this case, how would you avoid, what if I don't want to rotate any adjacent? Then you can approach, you can think about biomechanics here. So let's take a look what I did. Here we just badly rotate premolar here. Instead of applying two attachment here and elastics, what I did was open coil spring here to open up a space a little bit. It's not for a major opening, just a little bit, to put the contacts apart, just a little bit, very light force, okay? And bracket was placed here. Bracket was placed not at the lanyard side. You cannot put it here. No, it doesn't matter where you put the bracket, okay? Just put the bracket any place you want. I did it here, sideways, at the mesial side. Now, here's the wire, and as this is a real slide, you don't know what's going on in this wire, right? So I'll illustrate it with a color so that you can easily understand. The wire looks like this. It is in green color. What did I say the green color is? Green color is passive wire. It does nothing. So this is a wire that I made. So I engaged here, and the free end goes down like this. Okay? This is a passive shape of the wire. And to activate this wire, I apply the upward force at the free end like this until it goes up here. Okay? And I engage here with loose ligature tie. I did not put it into the bracket. It is a lingual sheath and very light wire is engaged into here, and no moment is produced. It's like a button. I loosely ligate it with the ligature wire. No moment is created. And once I ligate it, I put my finger out of it, and then this reflected wire turned into orange color, right? Orange color means wire is elastically deflected, that something is going to happen, right? The force is applying right now. So what kind of force is applying right now? As in Newton's third law, as I move up, the wire moves down like this. So this wire put distal force on the molar here. So molar is going to try to move it distally by this force, right? And once again, this force cannot exist alone. According to Newton's first law, it has to be in equilibrium. So there's a downward force, so there is an upward force, okay? And as you see, this is a hinge support, no moment is produced here. So this is an HNghi appliance, rectangular wire is inside of the bracket, so the moment is produced. What is the moment? It's here. So there's an upward force here, downward force, so total it's going to rotate it counterclockwise, and by this huge moment is produced here. And how much is the moment and how much is the force? We can calculate. So moment is force times distance. Okay? So what did I do like this? It looks like complicated. Why do we do this? Just put the two elastic here. As moment is force times distance, if we increase the distance, we can decrease the force, right? So for a given amount of moment, force and distance are inversely proportional. One goes up, one goes down. One goes up, one goes down, right? So if I increase the L, I can reduce the force very, very, very low. That means, do I want to move this motor backwards? Do I want to move these tooth forward? No, I don't want that. I don't want to move the tooth up and down. But you cannot avoid from those side effects. Then how you can reduce it? How would you reduce it? by increasing the L. That's why I connected the appliance from here to there, and probably in the human oral cavity, this is the largest interbracket distance we can get. It's like 30 to 40 millimeter, right? Very large compared to continuous arch wire. In continuous arch wire, inner bracket distance is maximum is 7 millimeter, right? Or less than that. So if you have large distance, you can have very little force, okay, but very large moment. That's why we do it this way. So does it work? We'll see. This is a patient before, and you can see that it started to rotate. And a couple of months later, a month later, a month later, a month later, finally it has been rotated without showing any side effects. So in this case, you cannot avoid the side effects, but as you can increase the inner bracket distance, you can decrease the side effects as much as possible. So once again, I told you that leveling arch wire should be put after the leveling, right? Let's see what happens if you put the leveling arch wire in major discrepancy. Here is the extraction case. So first, wire was extracted, and space was, the wire was inserted. It's a light wire, okay? And spring was attached here to close the space. And as the wire was not rigid enough, let's say it's like 16,000 stainless steel, not rigid, right? So after the space closure, it goes like this. It is very frequent to observe situation right after space closure. We see that the crown has been closed, however, the root is dilated still. Why is that? That's because wire was not rigid enough. So this kind of thing happens very easily. So patient might ask you, oh, doctor, treatment has been finished and I want to debunk, but you say that, oh, this needs to be closed up, right? So spring was removed. And wire was replaced with stiffer, right? We changed the wire to move the roots and wait for leveling. And it goes like this. Do we? Well, sometimes. So, best case scenario. This is the best case scenario we can expect. So most of the time, it works, okay? But I want to say, not always. That's it. So let's take a look at what worst case scenario is. Well, more rigid wire was used for leveling, okay? In a real life, it doesn't happen, but let's just have an assumption, thought experiment, okay? After the space closure, unfortunately, cuspid, bicuspid has been enclosed. I don't know why it's been enclosed. Let's suppose it's just an assumption, okay? And I was keep leveling. And or you can say that it became, this natural tweak became an implant, something like that. It doesn't happen in real life, but it's just a thought experiment, okay? Then you keep leveling in this. What will happen? The cuspid and second bi never moves. It's enclosed, right? So the wire deflects somewhere here and there, and it levels like this. Right? It never happens in the real life, but just an assumption, and it's the worst case. So my question is, the real life, in a real life, it must be happen somewhere in between best case and the worst case, right? In real life, it's the middle. So most of the time, after space closure, if we change the wire, it goes like, first it's been produced here, and it goes somewhat like this. So so-called, we have a reverse curve. We made it inadvertently after replacing the wire like this, right? So as we took, this is inevitable. Whether you did the leveling, or I did the leveling, or Dr. Prophet, or whatever famous doctor do, it's the same. Like this. Here we have a 16,000. This is the, you can see that the occlusal plane was straight to begin with. and elastic was put the cuspid from the molar, and as wire was not rigid enough, cuspid is tipping into the extraction site, and as the dips, this part of the wire goes up, so bite is being deepened, these incisors are erupted. This is a side effect that you can expect during retraction of the cuspid under not rigid enough wire, something like 16,000 wire or something like that. And in that case, what would you do? This was a occlusal plane to start with, and now you have a curve of speed, and what you do is something like this. As we have curve of speed, we use reverse curve. Okay? So it's very easy to think that as we have a curve of speed, you might think that reverse curve might flatten the occlusal plane. It's conceptual. But the wire does not know how wire shaped, does not care about the wire shape. Tooth responds only to the force system, and we have to look at the force system, that the force system is not what we want. Maybe these are what we want, but side effects are much greater than the forces that we want. This is what we want, right? But this is small compared to the side effects. So in this case, maybe most of the time, reverse curve is not working in correct direction. If it worked, it was because it was lucky. Okay? Then, how would you do? Let's take a look at one case here. Second bite was extracted in this case, and space was closed. And you can see the space has been closed. However, we can still, the root is diverged together because wire was not rigid enough. So in this case, rather than putting a reverse curve, you can place the localized V-band only in between 5 and 6. Like this. This is a 1622 night-tie wire, and I put the V-band at the center of two brackets here, and you can see there's an equal and opposite force only acting in between first lie and first molar, so that root goes together. Root correction goes together like this. So localized V-band would be better than generalized reverse curve of speed. Sometimes we frequently see that lingual incisors rotate only, lowers are rotated like this. You observe this, right? And if you inadvertently level this, wire was engaged here, and what does it happen? What would you predict, or what would you expect by the result of this kind of leveling? This kind of thing happens. The anterior arc becomes flat. Please raise your hand. You frequently find this. I encounter those problems. No? You frequently found like this. Anterior becomes flat if you level it. So once again, leveling arch wire should be put after leveling, right? So take a look what I did. Here we have a case. Only incisors are rotated. Okay. So instead of continuous arch wire, I put only segmental wire in lingual side. Only between two. So only equal and opposite forces acting at the central zone, like this. Very small segment of wire, right? Very small. And here's a few weeks after. You can see that the incisors are rotated and open up the space for the friction. Now it's time to put the full arch wire. So full arch wire is engaged, and you don't see the flattening of anterior arc just by using the segmental wire. So in this case, what would you do? Side effect will happen. Adverse. Occlusal pain will be like that, right? So what would you do? What is your solution? I told you, cut the wire. Where to cut the wire? Cut here. Only two tooth, like this. Don't waste wire. Don't use full arch wire. It's very expensive. You have a segmental wire, right? Just put segmental wire in between these two teeth only. Then there will be an equal and opposite couple acting only in between these two teeth. like this, and there will be no side effects at all. That's how we do cutting the wire. Let's take a look at this one of this. Centrals are securely rotated, right, in this mixed rotation. So what did I say? Just use a segment of wire rather than full arch, right? If you put the full arch wire adjacent to the side, parallel side, right? So rather than full bonding, I just put two wires in between centrals and put the straight wire only in between two and three. And here's the patient after the rotation. Now we can wait for the full eruption of the remaining teeth and later second phase of the treatment. Once again, here it is rotated in opposite direction, like this, right? If the straight wire was engaged here, not only this one rotates, but the lateral moves to the lateral side and anterior segment will be flat. You can anticipate that. So rather than putting a full arch wire, I just pulled a segment of wire only between centrals like this. Here's before, and there is a space, there is a play between the resin and the wire here, and I will not explain about this in detail. You can see that the wire is sliding here. So once it is rotated, now you can put the continuous arch wire. So major discrepancy should be resolved before applying continuous arch wire. Okay, so you can see no side effects. One more case. You can see here that first molar and second molar are diverged here. So what we need to do is apply the equal and opposite couple to the molar. So what I did was something like this. We've learned that the bracket should be put perpendicular to the long axis, right? But rather than putting it that, I intentionally angulate the bracket like this, so that you make an equal and opposite angle. Okay, so that the wire goes like this, straight wire goes like that. So this is intentionally, I angulated the bracket, the straight wire is engaged, and you can see that the angulated bracket, the wire was inserted only in between first and second, and it was cut here. See? To prevent the adjacent side effects. Now let's move on to statically indeterminate system. That means it's very complicated, but I'll try to explain it as easily as much as possible. I would like to introduce one of the journal here. It's a classic, 4 Systems from an Ideal Arch. Please raise your hand. I've seen that journal. Please raise your hand. I haven't seen that journal. I recommend you to read this one. This one tells you what happens if you engage the full arch wire. And if you take a look at it, it's horrible. It's very difficult. Very difficult to understand. But it's very difficult to understand and analyze. So I will not expect about that in detail. But however, if you visit this site, you can download the calculator so that I made 6 geometry very easy, so you can take a look and analyze the cases if you want. I'm not explaining about this geometry. I'm just introducing this kind of journal exists to analyze the force in continuous arch. Now let's take a look at this one. Central is badly rotated, right? And wire is engaged like this. And here's the patient after the treatment. I saw it in a textbook. And it seems like this seems like case is beautifully treated, right? No problem, okay, beautifully treated. But the thing with that is, it shows a close-up view, and it does not show what happens in the motor, unfortunately. And let's take a look what happened. I think this is just my guess, okay? I'm not sure. I don't know what happened really. It's not my case. It's just assumption. It is like this. Incisors are rotated like this, and if you engage the wire here, you should activate the wire like this into the motor, right? So wire is in green, and it goes like this to engage into it, right? The blue one is an activation force that we apply at the molar. So if we release our hand, my question is, what will going to happen in the molar? That's my question. What will happen to the molar? Molar will expand. Not only central rotates, molar will expand. So, once again, analyzing what happened here is very easy. But many times, you miss what happens at here in reaction unit. So, if the patient has a narrow maxilla to begin with, is this appliance good or bad? Very good. It was very good choice. But what if the patient has a normal buccal, upper molar width is normal, or it's wider than the normal? Is this appliance good or bad? It's terrible. You should never use this kind of appliance. In that case, what do you have to do? No, cut the wire. Cutting the wire, that will prevent the side effects. Okay? So after the coffee break, we'll see what happens using a single force. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thầy cứ nói với thầy cái mic rồi á.
Bây giờ các bạn ở đây ai có thắc mắc, có sự hay là hỏi ý kiến gì cho thầy những cái chuyện cứ phát biểu. Chúng ta có giờ, bây giờ từ bây giờ trong chừng nửa tiếng các bạn tự hỏi. Thì có ai có thắc mắc gì có
Professor Choi, thank you for your very inspiring lecture. And I had a question regarding the last example. You recommend cutting the wire to prevent the side effect, the adverse side effect on the motor. And I want to know if we cut the wire or we place a TPA to prevent the side effect in the motor, which is more efficient, effective in terms of the correction of the motor, the rotation inside. Can you do the comparison? Thank you.
Okay, good question. Well, I don't want to expand the motor. I don't want a buccal force on the motor. Then, as he said, as Dr. Thaw said, passive TPA might prevent the side effect, right? So that's a good solution. But what makes it better than cutting the wire? It's useless. You don't have to do that. Just you better cut the wire and then apply TPA, right? That's my message. It's a good solution, but not efficient, I would say. Yeah. Question?
Dạ em có Tuy nhiên thì thầy có kẽm chỉ có ở một vị trí là ở phía bên trái, thì em không biết là thầy có ý định gì hay không, tại vì thường thì em nghĩ là sẽ buộc ở cả hai bên, bên phải và bên trái, để nó ngăn cản cái sự nghiêng của mặt nhai. Rồi còn câu hỏi thứ hai đó là trường hợp những cái trục răng này nó bị phân kỳ thì thầy sử dụng là cung phân đoạn, nhưng mà có một trường hợp là thầy sử dụng cung liên tục và thầy sử dụng cái vi bên nhiều vị trí răng số 6 và răng số 4. Nếu vậy thì nó khác nhau gì giữa hai phương pháp đó?
So she has two questions. The first question is about a case with a growing patient. Yeah, he has deep bite, and you use intrusion arch to treat the deep bite. And he said that the deep bite is solved by the intrusion of the anterior teeth and the extrusion of the posterior teeth. But she noticed that you only tie the wire on the left side of the anterior segment. She doesn't know if you have, if it will cause the canting of the occlusal plane, or should we tie it on both sides?
You want to correct the canting of occlusal plane.
She means that why did you just tie the wire on the left side of
No,
the...
I just tied at the center.
Thầy nói là thầy buộc kẽm hơi giữa của cái phân đoạn phía trước, không phải là ở phía bên trái. She said that maybe in the picture she noticed that the tie.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Why did I put it on the right side only? Well, I did it on both sides. Accidentally, nothing to do with the opposite. I put it on both sides.
Thầy nói là thầy buộc ở cả hai bên, mà cái này có thể là một bên nó bị rớt ra, chứ không có ý đồ buộc cả bên.
Very nice view.
Đây là cái sự nguyên xác rất là tốt. So the second question is about a case when you treat when the root of the two adjacent teeth is not close to each other. You use the V-band. There's a case that you use the V-band on the continuous arch
Yes.
instead of a segmented arch.
So it's
what?
a continuous.
Yeah. So why in that case you use the V-band in the continuous arch?
Well, for a short period of range, you can put the V-band at the center using a continuous arch wire. But if you are to move large, quite large enough, I cannot tell how much is the large. But if you are to move a little bit, just putting a wire at the continuous arch will work. Now, if you are moving very large amount, you should cut the wire. But it's difficult to tell what is large and what is small. But I can only say that like that way. For major correction, you should cut the wire. But for minor correction, you can leave it that way. You may not cut the wire.
Trường hợp mà mình cần điều chỉnh ít á, thì mình có thể là cái VBN ở trên cái dây cung liên tục. Nhưng mà nếu mà nhiều quá thì mình nên cắt dây. Thầy cũng nói là rất là khó để nói được là bao nhiêu là ít, bao nhiêu là nhiều. Nhưng mà ví dụ như nó thấy mà cái cần chỉnh cái chân răng đó ít thôi thì mình có thể đặt. Trên cái dây cung liên tục.
There are pros and cons of cutting or not cutting. If you do not cut, you can keep the integrity of the arch. But if you cut, if it goes wrong, it can develop into new malocclusion. So It's tricky to say. So you try with continuous arch wire, and if you start to have a adverse side effect, now then you can cut.
Nó cũng có lợi với lại bất lợi khi mà mình cắt dây hay là thông. Nếu mà mình để dây không cắt á, thì có thể nó giữ được cái răng còn lại ở cái vị trí đó, nhưng mà nếu mình cắt dây thì có thể nó tạo ra cái cái cắn khác. Thì mình có thể thử bằng việc là để cái dây cung liên tục trước, và nếu mình bắt đầu thấy có tác dụng phụ thì mình nên cắt dây.
So I would like to say about heat monitoring. It's something like this. Is here anyone from North Korea? No. North Korea have ICBM, ballistic missile, which can fly over to the New York, right? Have you heard that North Korea made a missile like that? ICBM? ICBM, long distance missile.
Triều Tiên đó là có một cái tên lửa siêu
They have a
bay
missile. They can strike United States directly over to New York, right? They have a long range missile. But what I want to tell you is that can it hit the New York? No. Why not? Because to hit the missile directly over to the target, you have to have a lot of satellite, and you should keep the track of it using a supercomputer. That's why. Because very little error in the initial angle, the target is very widely diverse. It's very difficult to hit at the same one time. If you try once and it goes to the right, and you have to modify the angle a little bit to the left, and you should try multiple times to get to the angle. Or you should keep track of the track in real time using satellites and computers, right? To get the target at one trial. Orthodontic treatment is something like that. We become a supercomputer and we monitor the track in real time. So we apply it, we calculate the force and the moment in correct direction to get the target in one trial, but it never goes in one trial. As I said, we have to modify the force system in every visit, so we have to be a supercomputer and we have to monitor if the track is going in the correct direction every time. That is why we do it. So, once again, if you want to apply the equal and opposite couple, you can start on putting a V-band and continuous arch wire and monitor the patient. And if the main effect goes well and you start to have a side effects, then it's time to cut the wire. So the important thing is design the force system and accurately bend the wire. But more important thing is that you need to think and monitor the patient every visit, so that you can correct your pass. Okay, that's my message.
Thì giống như là ví dụ là một cái tên lửa ví dụ từ Triều Tiên bắn qua New York thì nó rất là khó để mà nó bắn trúng mục tiêu ngay một lần, mà để cho nó ví dụ mà nó có thêm những cái vệ tinh trên cái đường đi của nó để nó điều chỉnh cái hướng của cái tên lửa đó trong quá trình nó bay á, thì nó sẽ dễ đến cái mục tiêu hơn. Thì cũng giống như quá trình điều trị của mình muốn cái răng nó di chuyển tới đó, nhưng mà thì trong quá trình mình điều trị mình cũng phải theo dõi để mình điều chỉnh cái hướng như là cái lực, cái phương pháp của mình để cho cái răng nó đạt tới cái vị trí mà mình mong muốn. Thì cái thông điệp của thầy là thầy muốn là cái việc mà thiết kế ra cái hệ thống lực và mình vẽ những cái dây để mình đạt được cái hệ thống lực đó là quan trọng, nhưng mà cái quan trọng hơn đó là mình cũng phải theo dõi bệnh nhân để mình điều chỉnh cái hệ thống lực đó trong cái quá trình điều trị.
So in the book says, in the intrusion spring like this will correct the deep overbite. So once again, most of the time you can correct the deep overbite if you carefully follow the instruction and the technique written in the book. But I want you to know that, and once I said, like a chicken noodle soup, this never goes the way that you expect. It goes in wrong direction every time. So more important than technique, so you have to understand what the force system is going on inside there. So you have to think every time, and you have to have an ability to modify the force system as it needed.
Ví dụ như mình đọc trong mấy cái tài liệu hay là sách thì nó đều có hướng dẫn ví dụ như điều trị cắn sâu, nhưng mà khi mà mình thực hiện thì không phải lúc nào nó cũng đẹp. Thực hiện theo cái quy trình giống như là cuốn sách nấu ăn ban đầu thầy ví dụ thì không phải lúc nào nó cũng ra kết quả được giống như vậy. Mà cái quan trọng là mình phải hiểu cái cơ chế ở bên dưới để khi mà mình thực hiện mà nó không có đi giống như vậy thì mình biết cách để mình điều chỉnh cái khí bụng của mình để cho nó đạt được cái vị trí răng.
So we want to derotate this one, okay? We want to derotate the perimeter. What is required here? We need a couple, like turning the wheel. One force goes up, one force goes down, right? So most easiest way would be put button over here, and put the elastic here, and button over here, and put the elastic down there. But there's a huge side effects. Why is that? Because distance from two forces is too small. Let's suppose I hate to have a number, but let's suppose 1,000 Gram-millimeters required for rotation, okay? Suppose. Then, let's suppose the length distance between here and there is about 5 millimeter. How much force is required? 200 Gram, right? 200 times 5 millimeter goes 1,000. So 200 gram is required here and there. So it gives you 1,000 Gram-millimeter for rotation, okay? Now, 200 gram is applied at the premolar here too. 200 gram of force is acting here. So normally, how many force do you apply for the retraction? Like 200 gram, right? It's very effective to move the roots. I mean, move the teeth. So not only this one moves in correct direction, if you put the elastic of 200 gram to apply 1,000 Gram-millimeter, this one and this one will rotate very effectively. So that's not good. Side effect is too huge. So we need to reduce it, right? So what we need is to decrease the force. Still, we need the 1,000 Gram-millimeter of moment, okay? So, moment is time, force times distance. Now we need 1,000 Gram-millimeter, okay? Now, L is about, let's say, 50 millimeter. Then how much is the force? 20. Only 20 gram is required compared with the single force elastic here. In this case, you need 200 gram, but if you increase the distance like this, only 20 gram is required. And with 20 gram, do you know how much 20 gram is? Well, dollar bill, $1 bill, or $100 medallion. One piece of dollar bill is about 1 gram. So 20 gram is very light, you see? With 20 gram, it hardly moves at all. So to reduce the side effect, I increase the interracket distance to reduce the side effects. Okay? I hope this is an answer. Any more answers? Okay?
I just wonder why the direction of the movement is clockwise.
Why the direction is clockwise?
Yes.
Good, okay. Do you understand that force goes down here then?
Yes.
Okay. It goes down here, it goes up there. That is equal and opposite force, right? Equal and opposite course, they are parallel, then it is a definition of couple. So, how much is the couple? This up and down goes counterclockwise, right? This one goes up, this one goes down, so it rotates this way, counterclockwise direction, right? So what does Newton's first law says? All the moment should be sum to zero, right? So these counterclockwise moments should be cancelled out by clockwise moment, right? The moment can be produced either here or there, but it doesn't produce here. Why no moment is here? Only here. That's because it is an edgewise bracket and reticular Y is fully engaged in it. So if you pull it up, there is a moment here. But this is something like a limbo button. So the button and wire is loosely connected by ligature wire here. So there is a huge play between there. So even if you are applying the force and reticular wire inside it, no moment is produced here. As I said, this is a hinge support and this is fixed support. That's why only moment is produced here. Okay? Okay, thank you. Good question.
Hello, dạ em xin thầy có một câu hỏi là ở cái trường hợp mà sửa chỉnh hai cái răng cửa bị xoay á, chỉnh hai cái răng cửa bị xoay á, thì thấy thầy dùng dây hơi lớn và thầy dùng về cái ma sát, nhưng mà theo như em nghĩ là mình có thể dùng không ma sát hay không? Hai cái răng cửa thầy dùng phong đỏ nhưng mà nó cho em xin cái hình hai cái răng cửa xoay, thầy chỉnh xoay này mà thầy dùng
In a case that you treat to rotate the incisor, you use a large wire and with friction. So our question is, can we use non-friction mechanics?
Non-friction mechanics? Oh, sure.
Or can we use smaller wires?
Yeah, okay. Or you can put a loop in between the brackets.
Có thể
I'll talk about the loop a little bit later.
Sau cái phần sau này sẽ nói về loop nhiều hơn. She wanted to ask the reason why you use the large wire in this case.
Why did I use larger wire? Oh, square.
Cái xin hỏi là tại sao có cái cam thầy dùng cái dây rất là lớn để chịu xoay hai cái răng cửa?
Well, it is out of scope of today, but that is class 6 geometry.
Đó là cái hình học thứ sáu, trong cái sáu.
This is what I did. Equal and opposite couple. And as you can see here, the moment is very small.
Cùng độ lớn nhiều thật.
With the same amount of activation and same kind of wire. Moment is largest in here, moment goes very weak here. So in class 6 geometry, you can use very rigid wire. It provides not that much moment.
Thì ở cái hình học 6, trong cái trang thứ 6 thì cái moment cần rất là nhỏ, thì ở cái hình học thứ 6 thì nó không có cái lực mà nó chỉ có moment, nên là
Explain about this today.
mình không có sợ là dây to hay dây nhỏ.
It's very complicated. I can only say that if there's an equal and opposite force, moment is quite small than you expect, so you can use quite rich wire. Only for class 6. In other geometry, it's
Nó
not.
chỉ đúng với lại cái hình học số 6 thôi, là cái trường hợp đó. Còn cái trường hợp khác thì không phải.
I have to,
You can explain.
dạ, thì như thế này, thầy nói cái này nó nằm ở ngoài cái phạm vi của bài này.
Tuy nhiên cái cơ học á, mà mình dán một cái đoạn thép mà cắt á, bằng cái composite á, thì nó rơi vào cái geometry 6 của trong 6 dạng và cái tương quan giữa dây cung với lại mặt cài. Và như chúng ta thấy cái hình mà một loạt đó cùng một cái sợi dây cùng một cái mặt cài với những cái tư thế gắn khác nhau và chia thành 6 loại, thì các chị thấy đó, hình học 6 nó chỉ có moment, mà moment nó nhỏ chút không? Moment nó rất là nhỏ so với cái moment của số 1 á, nó vẫn còn. Đó là lý do á, là moment rất nhỏ, mà moment nhỏ thì nó không tạo ra sự xoay được. Chúng ta biết sự xoay nó phải có moment khoảng 1.000 gam mm. Đó là lý do mình phải dán cái dây to. Nếu trên thì dán dây nhỏ nó không xoay được, mà phải dán cái dây to để nó đạt được 1.000. Bởi vì nhìn ở đây chúng ta thấy nó bằng đâu cỡ 1/3 cái cùng một cái dây đó. Cho nên cái này á, nó nằm ở trong cái phần chúng ta phải hiểu được 6 cái dạng hình học. Đó là lý do mà muốn chỉnh cái đó bằng cách cắt dây á, mà bác sĩ Huyền dán dây nhỏ, có thì chợ quái không có bao giờ xoay đâu, phải dán dây to để cho nó đạt được 1.000.
We better discuss it next time.
Dạ, cho nên thầy sẽ nói cái đó trong cái giai đoạn khác, trong một cái thành nào khác.
Là em muốn hỏi thầy là nếu mà dây nhỏ no friction, dây nhỏ đi trong ống no friction.
And she said that because you want the composite, you want it composite. But what is you use the two, for example, the Korean is use the musician and a very small arc, very small arc.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you use composite or bracket or miniature. Doesn't matter.
Dạ. Cho nên thầy nói á là nếu mình dùng cái dây nhỏ, dây to, hay là mini tuyết, hay là dán nó cũng như nhau, không có là không hiệu quả.
Only force system matters.
Dạ. Chỉ có cái hệ thống lực là quan trọng. Okay. Cho nên cái đó là mình có thể dùng dây to, bởi vì dùng dây to nó mới ra được cái moment đủ để nó xoay. Còn nếu dùng dây nhỏ hay dây to cũng được. Nhưng mà cái mà Huyền nói dán ống tuyết mà bỏ cái dây vô á, thì nó chính là hệ thống mà ma sát. Bởi vì nó sẽ trượt là ma sát. Còn nếu Huyền muốn dùng hệ thống không ma sát thì Huyền phải vẽ cái lực giữa hai cái đó thì nó mới không ma sát. Chứ còn á, cái nói là hệ thống mà không ma sát thì lực mà thầy đang dùng dây thẳng mà.
So suppose in this case, this one, the incisors are derotated not only from the angulation here, but from here also. So in this case, light wire might work well because the action is from here and there. But if you cut it, you better replace it with more original.
Thì ở trường hợp này thì do hai cái răng cửa nó bị xoay khi mà buộc vô cái răng cối á, thì nó sẽ có tác dụng phụ lên răng cối. Nếu mà mình muốn giải xoay hai cái răng cửa thì mình có thể cắt cái dây hai bên.
In this case, if we bond the two lingual trap and use elastic, chain elastic,
Frontolingual.
lingual.
That's good. That's good. But in the upper, it's going to interfere the occlusion. It's effective in the lower, but not that good in the upper because it's going to interfere.
Bây giờ có hỏi là nếu
Theoretically good, but practically not good.
thì có hỏi là nếu trường hợp này mình đặt hai cái bánh tình ở mặt trong và mình đi rung chuỗi thì có được không? Thì nói là về mặt lý thuyết thì cũng được, nhưng mà nó có thể cản trở khớp cắn như cái này là răng cửa trên thì thực tế nó có thể hơi khó hơn chút xíu.
Good try. Okay.
Okay, I think that's all finished for today. Thank you so much for your interest in letter and the interaction is between you, audience and lecturer. Thank you so much. Và mình sẽ nghĩ vậy là mình sẽ ăn trưa tới 1:30 mình quay lại đây.
Dạ thầy ơi, thầy qua hội trường Vinh để trao quà cho các viên giùm em. Ở Vinh nữa hả? Thì cũng xin lỗi.
Mình sẽ ăn trưa ở